Okay, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about science and specifically Darwinism and evolution. So, in general, I more than accept the facts of Darwinism and evolution. And one of the things that occurs to me is that scientists and Darwin himself were or are still unknowingly working within the same Christian Christian Platonic religious framework. That being, or that view being that the truth, in inverted commas, will lead to the divine, or that we can somehow attain pure knowledge and enter heaven, which for science is obviously here on earth. The kingdom of God is here on earth for scientists, and it's not located in some other world or heaven. Now, Darwin seems to claim that evolution leads to a type of perfection through progress. However, there are no actual facts about evolution which can actually support this claim, this view that we are heading in a particular direction. Now, scientists like Darwin don't believe in God, obviously. However, they don't actually realise that the very consequences of their work are actually, in a sense, very dangerous and irresponsible. They act as if what is happening is not their responsibility. And so, to use a Nietzschean term, by killing God, as Darwin and science does, it kills with it the very foundation on which all our values are built upon. And this is what Nietzsche meant when he famously said that God is dead. Now, when scientists truly realise what they have actually done here, it will probably be more than too late. It'll be too much or too little too late, as the nihilistic consequences would have occurred by then. Now, Darwin himself did not actually realise these nihilistic consequences of his own theory, although he clearly understood the social consequences, hence he delayed the release of his Origin of Species work. Now, like I said, Darwin could not possibly have realised the potential nihilistic consequences of his theory, simply because, as I said, he was still conditioned by his Christian background and his Christian upbringing, and also the Christian culture in the form of of uncritically held beliefs and hopes about the world and about life. Now, if we take away these values and beliefs, these Christian values and beliefs which are ingrained into our culture, what we are actually left with is a very nihilistic way of looking at things. The universe is then just seems to be a neutral, valueless place with no kind of meaning or any purpose to it. And so, nowadays there are many people who see life and the universe as completely pointless and meaningless, and this is the general conclusion and the direct consequence of Darwinism and of science. Now, what Darwin's theory of evolution, in principle, does is it turns human beings into rather unhappy apes with more advanced CPUs. We have become sort of the perfect herd animal, and because of this, there's no room for any kind of optimism. Instead, there's only a blind optimism for the future evolution of mankind. Now, before Darwin came around, belief and hope in the human spirit and in humanity was ripe. And now as a consequence of Darwinism, there really is no hope. We might as well just kill ourselves or something, because life has no meaning to it. And this is all part of the inevitable result of the pursuit for scientific wisdom and scientific truth. Now, once this blind optimism in science has actually been surpassed, the apparent meaninglessness and the very mechanical nature of the universe is then fully realized. We will begin to realize and begin to see that we are simply just cogs in a massive, complex system that is the world and the universe. Now, in my view, and by the commonly accepted definition of the term, this is nihilism. This equates to nihilism. And as I said, Darwin just sees man as a more complex ape. Our very uniqueness as a species, our importance and our individuality as human beings is destroyed and is significantly lessened. I accept the view that we descended from apes via some form of evolution, which I mentioned in one of my previous videos. But the however, it is this truth of evolution which will lead our culture to nihilism, and by that I mean that our culture will eventually destroy itself, and we will destroy all the values which we have developed and realized as human beings over the past, God knows how many thousand years. And this will be the moment when men truly realize or follow the scientific conclusion that they are simply nothing more than advanced apes. Now, some people and some scientists, particularly people like, perhaps Darwin to a degree, but certainly people like Richard Dawkins and people like that, they tend to preach a form of optimism by suggesting that we as human beings are somehow moving up that we are somehow moving up the evolutionary ladder towards some kind of more perfect state, and that because we are complex creatures and beings, we are therefore beautiful, and that it's something, our history and our evolution is something to be admired. And in a sense, this view that we are somehow moving up the evolutionary ladder is exactly the same as the religious view that we are progressing towards some kind of divine state. That we are somehow, achieving something, achieving the best that we could possibly achieve. And as I'm sure that most scientists are aware, we as human beings we could possibly be overtaken evolutionarily or superseded by a more supreme species, and we will then become like the ape is to us, a kind of a laughing stock. And yeah, this is obviously unlikely to happen, as we probably kill them off before they even had the chance. But we can also look towards the cockroach or an ant or something, some other type of insect or bacteria which can survive things like nuclear holocausts, whereas as we as human beings wouldn't. We'd obviously perish. And according to Darwin, this would mean that they are fitter, and that they are, to speak in Darwin's language, that they are the higher species, and as they are more adaptive to their environment. We can also look at disease. Surely a simple virus could wipe out mankind just like that, or an alien invasion or something. I don't know. So the reason why I'm giving these examples is to show that there's no reason for us to believe that we are somehow ascending up the evolutionary ladder, and that we are somehow progressing towards a kind of state of perfection, which evolution tends to heavily imply or suggest. And so, quite clearly, scientists and Darwinists who believe this are, in a sense, deluded if they have any kind of hope or optimism for the human species. Our environment is under no obligation to be favourable towards us. Nature has no obligation to be favourable towards mankind and towards our evolution. We are just as susceptible to nature as anything else on this planet. So, according to Darwin, if we do not eat or mate, then we will die out. Even if even our scientific advancements are simply being used to kind of refine our ape-like animal characteristics, by consuming and by making our lives easier to live, in the sense of survival, sort of survival of the fittest in that kind of sense. And so, even though we are quite clearly, separate from the ape and from any other evolved species on this planet, but yet we are living just like them. And Darwinism and science is being used to keep us ape-like, to kind of to remind us every day of our, that we are nothing more than advanced apes. And so, instead of being men and human beings, we are simply becoming apes again. You know, we're kind of devolving into apes, having ape-like mentalities. And the very few steps that we have actually taken as a species, you know, making us separate from other animals and from apes, is slowly being undone and destroyed by Darwin and by Darwinism, as it promotes animalistic behaviour and is trying to constantly remind us that we are nothing more than apes. So we have to replace these dying and decaying religious values with something new. But Darwinism and science just doesn't do that. It just, you know, it can tell us why things happen, or it can tell us how things happen, but it can't give us the why. It can't, you know, tell us what is right and wrong. It doesn't tell us what we are supposed to do. It doesn't give us a purpose. It doesn't give us a meaning to our lives. And so, even though science did help in, you know, in bringing down the religious traditions of, you know, which have kind of kept us enslaved and brainwashed, you know, there's nothing. Darwinism and science offers absolutely nothing to replace that. And so, to conclude, if we were to follow the conclusions of Darwinism without creating any kind of new meaning or new values, then it will simply erase the little progress that we have made as human beings, as a species, which is separate from any other animals on this planet, and we will simply eventually just, our values will simply return back to that of less evolved animals.